if you can start coming up forward. Hello? Oh, you're back. So are you guys still staying back there in the back? Hi. Is everyone still staying? Oh, you're staying. Okay, I'm talking like back there. That's still. Well, you can just go back there and like, hey, if you're gonna stay, come up forward. If not, you can exit. We're trying to get the room a little settled so we can start the presentation. But don't be afraid. You know, you can start connecting with each other. Just sit in the second row. Start second row. Oh, the second row. Yeah, because like that's I don't want to move those chairs. All right, is everyone settled? Okay, I guess we can get started. So I'm not gonna go too much through. I have a lot of stuff, so I'm not gonna go trying to figure out a right position. Let me come down a little bit with you guys. Hopefully I think you'll be able to see me. So this is not just a regular like equity, inclusion, diversity, where it's like, okay, well, these people are bad, these people are good. Pretty much, I'm coming from a standpoint of, I want to preface before I get started, a standpoint of everyone here has a place and a position within how we navigate ourselves and the world around us, and how we connect with each other on a level of like individually, of how we see ourselves, and then also collectively how we see ourselves. So I guess I'm gonna get started. So my name is Anquida Adams. I am CEO and founder of ALA Consulting Firm. And it's a boutique firm with expertise in social relations and seeing, developing, implementing systems. I'm not gonna go through all this stuff, just like the political thing of like going through regular things, but this is pretty much my organization, so you know where it's coming from. Just letting you know like a little bit of what we're gonna unpack and how we're gonna like go through this thing and money. So we're gonna I didn't wanna do a lot of stuff, I just wanna get us started and jump in. So understanding equity, inclusion, diversity, how and why actively awareness of like what it is and how it's beneficial of home culture and organizational culture. And I bet you're like, why are we talking about organizational culture? Well, because I didn't have enough time, but I want you guys to think about it in this context. When you think about a family chart and you think about an organizational chart, it's the same thing, but it's not your family member, blood family member, but it's just another person with another entity. I think we were talking about earlier, I think you were in the room earlier, how the home is set up as the same way as the organization is set up. They don't want you to think that, but it's set up the same way. You have the mom, the dad, that is the C-suite, an executive space. Then you have the children, that is that's like the executive like team. Then you have the rest of the employees. So if you think about the whole two different entities, they're the same, but they want you to think about it separately, because if you think about it separately, when you're in the actual organization, you don't see the other person as a person that is part of you. Because if they're not a part of you, you can treat them any kind of way. You can disregard them, and you can actually act like they don't even exist. And so, but how can we actually be able to connect in a way of this shared economy if we don't understand how do we actually navigate ourselves in the world around us, or how do we connect with people that may look differently than us, or may look like us and we still have a different background. So I just wanted you to have that idea of like thinking about like what this look like of home and organizational culture. So as we get into it, like when you think about relationships, it's like an equity. For me, I'm just gonna sum all this up. Pretty much it comes down to respect. Like if I see you you might not look like me, or you may look like me, or you might have the same socioeconomic background as me, or you might not have the socioeconomic. With all of those isms, we might have it or we might not have it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if I can see you as a person, and I can say, okay, well, I don't have to know you to actually help you. I don't have to know you to actually, in that moment, give the capacity that I can to actually help you out. Because I think we're missing in these days of how do we help someone within our capacity, and using discernment and making sure that we're all balanced. Because most of the time we will see someone and then we're like, okay, well, they might be in need, and we're like, okay, well, this is another person, and I don't have capacity to help this person out. But I will say is, what I will say is that that respect as a human being, and that respect as a person, provides you a way to say, they don't have to be somebody for me to help them or connect with them. They only have to be in a space where I can say, okay, you're a human being, I'm a human being, and how do we connect with each other on a human level, pretty much. Okay, so next thing is, like, the best way to find, it's pretty much, again, about understanding the environment, feeling that people feel like they're valued, respected, and included, no matter what their identity is. And then also making sure that we weren't overlooked. So earlier, I saw that young lady, and she felt really kind of sort of out of place because, like, she wanted to speak, but then was like overlooked a little bit, but not intentionally. And I know you're probably like, well, what does this have to do with healing? I'm gonna get there too. Let me cook. I'm cooking. Let me cook. Okay, so most people think about diversity in all of this space right here, of the isms and stuff like that. And I'm gonna let you read over it really fast. And then I look at it as, read over real fast, whatever. Okay. So I look at it as like equity is a part of respect, inclusion is a part of belonging, and diversity is it just happens because you just literally created a space of respect and belonging. Because it's just a organic thing that happens, right? And then when you think about also just simplifying it, because I feel like we put all those Band-Aids of racism and whatever on top of all of it, and we're so confused. So I simplified it, and it's like thinking about how we connect with each other and how we hold space energetically. So if you write down this app, because I can't go into it that much, but it's My Human Design, and it talks about your energy and the energy that you hold and how you connect with each other. And that's gonna play a big part of what we're gonna see in the next couple of slides. So my energy design, and it's gonna have it's gonna have a manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, reflector. Those are the different types of energy types. I am a generator. So what you saw earlier is that I can be in any space, and I can feel different people. And as I'm feeling different people, I can tap into their energy. I can generate for them the thing that they're needing at that most in that moment, no matter what it is. It was kind of funny. I can give you an example. I hope you don't mind me sharing this. You talked about earlier your jacket.
My jacket?
Yes, and I'm talking about how I generate. Well, the jacket that you... So she had a jacket. She's like, oh, I can't find my jacket. And I was like, stop, stay right there, sitting right there at the door. And I said, take a deep breath. And I said, call the jacket into you. So she had to speak it first. And I said, I agree with you. And I said, so shall it be. And so sooner or later, she found it. So energy, when we think about energy, because we are energy, when we connect with people within those actually spaces of patterns of energies, we're able to get with us what we need and how we need it. And it can be on any level. So when you talk about like money, or when you're talking about, when you talk about money, and when you're talking about, if you're talking about lack or not lack, we're gonna get into that too. you have to learn who has the energy within that room. When you understand like the energy patterns, you can see their actual, what's the word I'm looking for? You can see the residue of them playing out within your actual space. And so when you learn what type of energy people have, I'm not saying use them. I'm saying be able to connect with them in a way that you're able to have two-way relationships to get the things that are generating to you that you want. And then the last thing is patterns and standpoints. So when you have a pattern, it's whether it's a pattern from your hereditary patterns, and like I said earlier about like the organizational or workplace or work family, you have a professional pattern. So however way you live your life, whether it's on the family side of your hereditary patterns, good, bad, and ugly, or the relationship that you had within the professional sector, those patterns come out intertwiningly. So you're gonna see those things coming up in your regular relationships, right? Both at home and at work. So I always tell my clients, I always say, you know, your partner, whatever things that you do not heal with that person, you're gonna see that same energy at work in another woman or another man. So when you don't heal energy, you're like, why is this person nagging me? Well, it's the same energy that you didn't heal at home. It's the same energy you're gonna get in the actual workplace or the places or the communities that you actually connect with. So that's why I talk about energy and patterns. Okay, so we're gonna get into the grit of this thing. Okay, so why is it important? Why is it beneficial? So one, I want you to think about within this space, and then you're gonna understand why I'm doing this. Everyone has a role to play in equity. So think about what role are you playing currently at this event as for equity? And you're probably like, well, why does that matter? Think about it, and I want you to figure out what role have you been playing this whole time. Oh, sorry. What role have you been playing in this whole time with equity? That means respect. How did you coming here and connecting with other people throughout this day? What role have you played in respecting others while you're here? So think about it a little bit. Then I want you to connect with your neighbors and talk about how you've honored the space of respecting others as you was here. And if you didn't, you can kind of talk about how you can do it later. Okay, you can connect with others. Find your people. Are you? Do you play at this event when you think about inclusion? So how inclusive have you been this morning or today, throughout this day? Because I'm bringing you guys back from mindfulness and being intentional. Like, even though this is a big space and everybody's doing everything that they're doing, like, you can still help yourself, but then be mindful of others that are around you. So when you know yourself and you know how to navigate the world around you, it's easy for you to give the capacity that you have to say, oh, I see this person over here. They're kind of struggling. Hey, do you need help with that bag? Or do you need help with blah, blah, blah? Or just being there to say hello. That's a form of inclusivity. Like, we think that we have to do grand gestures, but you don't know what situation someone's in. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what path that they just crossed. And so that's those small things that you do towards yourself, because you have to feed yourself first, and then honoring the person that's around you. It becomes simple, and it becomes easy, because then you know, okay, well, I have this bit to give, and I see it, I can have this capacity to make sure I can fulfill this for this other person. And that's how we get into a space of not just running through life, because I think we begin to be a lot busy, that we keep ourselves busy so we don't see ourselves. And without seeing ourselves, we can't see others. And that's the big part that I'm going to actually pull from this, because again, when we don't understand ourselves, we tend to sabotage ourselves and others without caring. And that's where the money comes in, but we're not there yet. Okay, so next thing. Okay, so what about diversity? Like what part of diversity, again, we're not talking about race, because most people, when diversity come into play, like, oh, we're talking about race. No, we're talking about that piece that says, okay, well, it just happened that I'm black, I'm a woman, and I'm here, and I'm adding to the space. Or I'm a woman or a man, and I'm adding to a space. It's like, how do you, or it could be like you bring something to the table as a talent that no one has. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has a space that they have, that they bring to the world. And each of us are bringing us into this space. So diversity can be a talent. So whatever role that you play in this space or currently playing, what is it? So you can kind of talk about that too. The center group, and we can kind of talk about the different things that you guys talked about and the roles that you played. So if we can come back to center, and we'll probably have a group to talk about the equity part, what part of equity that they think, the role that they played today, or you can talk about some of the things that you guys talked about. Anyone want to share? Anyone?
If we're the ways that I'm showing up with equity and respect is I'm doing an experiment of asking if somebody wants to speak with me before I start talking with them, so that they can have the opportunity to consent to a conversation. Because I know I love being asked, do you want to have a conversation right now? And then you can check the resonance and whether or not it's like a full yes or a full no. And like that, I think provides like some breathing space, especially when power dynamics show up between two people. And yeah, that was one way I showed up with respect and equity. Yeah.
I think that's awesome, because do you want to say something? Okay. So it's kind of funny when you said that, because like when my family used to call me, I used to ask my family, are you calling to vent to me, or are you calling to have a conversation with me? Because my role in my family used to be like, I'm holding the container for everybody. And I'm always listening. And I'm like, I don't want to be your listening person. I want to actually be a person that you want to have a relationship with, not just for me to do something for you. So when you said that, it reminded me of how you can be very, very open about if you're really wanting to hear the conversation, or if you want to be like, okay, I don't have, sometimes I was like, I don't have capacity to listen today. If they say, I want you to listen, because it sets you up to actually go through the actual patterns, like we talked about early, of not holding a grudge because you just let them just spill. So, and that's another part of like that respect, being able to hold boundaries for yourself, so that you won't get to the place where you're so overwhelmed that you can't see the other. You're like, if one more person come up here and talk to me and ask me to help them, but it's like having that space to say, okay, well, let me think about it, or let me have a conversation with you, because everyone know when someone's coming and talk to them, like, oh, you're come talk to me about this XYZ. So that space of like holding it, but once they actually know that that's that pattern of, well, I'm gonna get one or three of these things, and I better be ready to hold space for myself if that person say these three things, one of these three things, because it sets the expectation. So when they do talk to you or connect with you, it's around, okay, well, I don't have to. It's an emergency, but not an emergency. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people will create a space where it's an emergency, and then at the same time, it's like, okay, well, it's an emergency for you, but not for me, but what's my capacity? And even if my capacity, because we've been on a space of respect for each other and we are doing a two-way relationship, then it's okay. But if you're always doing something for somebody and they're not doing it for you, then you need to be like, okay, well, not this time. Okay, cool. Anyone else about the diversity part or the inclusion part that you want to share? That was unique? No? No takers? Okay. Okay. So, you want it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed yesterday, so we have Khalil came up and spoke today, the guy who's in charge of the grounds and stuff. And I had met him yesterday, but nobody really formally introduced us. And he was sitting like, slack and in the attire that he wears. And I was kind of ignoring him. I just assumed he was somebody's boyfriend, like, because he was dressed that way. And yeah, I was like thinking about like how that might have occurred to him as like a racial judgment, because I'm really tuned into how people dress. And obviously those are cultural things as well. And I'm like, oh, that's not how the head of the grounds should be. Like I have judgments about it. And I feel like I disrespected him because I just how he was dressed. Anyway.
So I'm glad that came up because, again, we want to do the good, the bad, and the ugly because we do see people in a way where it's like, if it's not to our standards, we're going to get to that too. If it's not to our standards and it's not to our patterns, then we see them in a different way, and then we don't want to connect or have an engagement with them. And again, it's also, you probably think it was about dress, but the clothes that we wear, the colors that we wear, colors have frequency. Yes, that's what I said. It's not. It wasn't his clothes. I mean, it was. But it was. Yeah. So it has frequency, and so what we wear, how we come into a room, our frequency comes before us too. So that's why I said earlier, it's about your energy and patterns. And that pattern that you're talking about, someone doesn't supposed to be in that space, and I had a video too, but I was like, okay. But you kind of brought that out, so that was good. So we're gonna go into the next space about the actual foundation of what I use for equity, inclusion, diversity. So let me cook still. So this part right here, it's identity intelligence helps bring clarity and assist with taking stock of one's current mindset to create a map to improving the path towards mental, physical, emotional, soulful, spiritual journey to become a better human being for self and accountability for the imprint and impact of action. So everything that you do creates an imprint and an impact on someone's life. And so when you come into someone's space, and however you show up within your patterns and your energy, it creates a cycle. And that cycle, and I'm going to start talking about it, creates a space where you're either bringing to that person's chaos or you bring in life. So always say that when you think about a culture, there's a subculture and there's a bigger culture. You are the subculture to the bigger culture. What are you bringing into that space? So you can always think about that, okay? Pretty much, you probably read all of that about creating a space of making sure that you're free from guilt, you're free from shame. So guilt, shame, and fear keeps you in a low frequency that you literally see others in a space of your insecurities. Let me say that again. Fear, shame, and guilt create a space where you create building up for the money because you have to know yourself. You have to know like what values you want to have before you go into the money part. Yeah. So I told you to let me cook. Okay. So we're gonna go to the next part, and that's character. So your character is a part of like are you the main character of your are you playing a main role? And if so, what type of role is it? Like, how do you want to like your presence to be? Because that's pretty much what your character is. It's like the role that you play in your life and other lives around you. So figure out like with you like what are the main characteristics of your character in which you like to display as a part of your personal and professional presence. You guys need an example? Are you like what character that you play? Well, sometimes that's what I said. Like you can say it's either one. If you're becoming and you're like, okay, I don't like the character that I'm playing right now, but I want to play this one, because you have to speak it in existence or see it and speak it in existence before it comes. And so if you don't see it, you can't become it. And then that's why we talked about values first. Because if you have those 5 things that will ground you, then it will help out with you playing the role in your character. And I'm asking you to let me cook because this is a part of the money part. When you know the first 5 areas, then we can start talking about the money and how you show up or how you don't show up. So everyone can kind of talk with each other around that. Well, think about it and talk with each other around the presence of what you show up as and what you want to show up as. And then we probably have to start wrapping it up because the next person has to come in. What time is it? Okay, so I'm going to really... Okay, let's go. You guys can talk about like the character you want to like come into. I'll let you guys talk about like at least for a minute, 2 or 3 minutes. Then I'm going to have to roll through a little bit more. It's a space of you are thinking about like one's goal, values, goals, and action, encompassing the competencies of like integrity, responsibility, compassion, and forgiveness. These are the core things that I talked about earlier. When you think about moving, and creating a space that you know how to navigate yourself in the world around you, because you have to have those things in place for you to actually move within the world in a healthy way. The integrity and responsibility part, you guys already know, but the compassion part is the one I wanted to like make sure I can drill home to you all, because sometimes we don't have compassion for ourselves, and when we don't have compassion for ourselves, you can see it, how you treat others. And that's the thing. Sometimes people treat people a little bit better than they treat themselves, or they treat them worse. So that compassion part of showing concern for others and yourself and their well-being, because sometimes we don't have compassion. Again, we don't have compassion for ourselves, and if we don't have it, we can't give it. Just like someone they don't know how to love, they can't give love. And so that's what I'm trying to help you guys understand. So then the last thing is forgiveness. Because some people will say, oh, well, I'm a loving person, but they don't even forgive themselves. They don't even forgive others. And it's kind of hard for you to connect with others and forgive others if you don't know how to lean into that forgiveness. And that when you forgive someone doesn't mean that you're like, okay, well, you can come back. No, it says, I forgive you. I ended that chapter, and I'm not going to speak about it anymore. Like I've already like shared like the things that I'm going to share about it, and it's done. Because when you do that, what most people, and I'm going to bring this up, most people don't understand that when you forgive someone, or if you don't forgive someone and you keep bringing up the things that are there, you're speaking that into their lives when you talk about the things that they do to you, because it's like an egregor, it's like a spirit that you're conjuring that actually goes to that person. Even though they did that to you, it creates a stronger spirit within that person of that thing that they did. And then now they're having to live with a spirit because you haven't let it go. And so that spirit continues to be with that person and to be on that person that they continue to do, and it becomes bigger. So when you don't forgive and you speak about it, it kind of brings it into fruition or into a reality more. Is it your time? Who's talking? You're not talking? Okay, so waiting on the next speaker because I have to introduce him too. So really quick, I was going to ask you guys about moral intelligence to make sure you understand. You can write this down, take a picture of it, and do this on your own for homework. Is there any areas you can think about that you can change when it comes to assisting you in your highest good? I know sometimes we think that, how we show up in the world is in our as a subgroup, is the way we literally create a space where we impact or imprint somebody. So what are some things that you need to think about, that areas you need to think about that you need to change to help out with growing and developing yourself? And then accountability, I know we gotta go through fast. This is the part of accountability. So it's accountability, and then also identify accountability. These two spaces are so different, but you have to figure out how do they play within your life, and how do they play within how you navigate yourself in the world around you. And then, I know this is small, but these are the key areas of accountability. You can take a picture if you need it. Okay, so let me keep going because I know we gotta go. And then this is the part of where we were gonna start talking about accountability and behavior. And these are the 5 areas that is defined in when you think about are you the next speaker? Okay, I'm gonna land the plane. So yeah, these are the 5 areas you need to think about when it comes to all the 4 things we talked about: values, character, accountability. They show up in all these areas, and they show up as your base when you actually define them. And so when they show up as your base system of how you show up, it's easier for you to actually navigate how you're imprinting and impacting other people. And like I said earlier, that experience thing, sometimes if you know somebody, you know the energy of it, and you're like, okay, I'm not trying to have I'm not trying to walk through that journey with you that day. That's what I was talking about, that compass. But really quick, let me see. And this is the part we're going to get into money. But he's going to get started. But think about the things that I talked about earlier. And then think about how do you describe your values towards money? The values that you actually wrote down. Next thing, and it's how do you create the values in this moment, but then also the character you have as an individual when you show up with money. What does that look like? Because sometimes we show up in the characteristics with money that we think that we're better than other people. And sometimes we show up in a way where it's oh, I have it, but I will share with others, but I don't have to brag about having it. And then the other one is, what characteristics do you show up with less or without money? If you don't have it, do you feel as though you're not anyone or you don't have value? And that's the questions that we're going to go into, because I had to get us to the point of all the rest of the stuff to get here so you can ask these questions in an honest way. Because when you show up in spaces, I'm going to hurry up. When you show up in places and when you don't have money, sometimes we treat others that have in a way that is not right. Because we put our insecurities on others, the saying rich people don't care about other people. No, there are some people who are rich who will share. Or poor people show up in a certain way and they're always taken. But again, everyone show up in a space, whether they're rich or poor, or wherever status they are in economic status. It's coming from a place of value, not because they have or they have not. Whatever they were before or after, that stuff is still there. So you can get money, and if you have those values and the character that you should have, you're going to treat people with respect. You're going to treat people with kindness. You're going to see them for who they are. But if you show up in a way where it's like, okay, your values are values of like disrespectfulness or pride, that's the way you're going to show up. So it has nothing to do with having money or not. And so when you look closely at moral intelligence in the current state of money and energy, again, I talked about money and energy. So money is just energy. And what happens is, like I talked about earlier, you get to actually bring into your vibration of what it looks like. And I know I'm having all these questions because these were the questions you would have been asking the group, and it would have been helpful for you to get them out. But I do want you to think about this because this is a financial space. What is moral intelligence? How we like? Well, sorry, I'm dyslexic, so I'm having some things going on here. But like moral intelligence, like how do you show up for you and the collective? How does moral intelligence show up for you in a collective? So the thing about that is, how does it show up for you? Think about how does it show up for you, and then think about how do you want it to show up for the collective? Because if you think about it in that way, you're able to figure out, again, how we have that two-way relationships. Okay, so I think I'm going to finish on that note, but I was going to talk about social currency and how do you define it, because and this is very important. We are the miracle and destiny seekers we seek. Because most of the time we think about miracles and we think about like destiny and bringing each other, going to destiny. You cannot have a miracle or a destiny without each other helping each other out. So, okay, so I'm going to end there. And I think we are finished. Thank you for your time. I was trying to run through it really fast. So I will end with that. And if you have any questions, you can come see me afterwards. And I'm going to introduce our next person, Dan.